second in our FMSEA virtual professional development series, where basically we're going to be bringing you some real science and ways that you can bring that into the classroom or your informal science center or whatever it may be. So my name is Dana Henderson. I think I know most of you guys, or have at least met you before, but I'm your FMSEA president for the year. I work at Mote Marine Laboratory full time, so I have lots of my colleagues on the call today. And so basically, guys, we're going to be taking a virtual tour of our Keys facility and learn all about the coral restoration and the classroom activities that go along with that today. So guys, I've got Miss Caitlin Hofeld on the call as well. She is your Southwest Regional Director in FMSEA, and she's also the camps coordinator here at Mote. I am pleased to introduce to you guys two other Mote employees. So we have Jessica Garlock. Is that how you say your last name, Jessica? I realized, I was like, oh, I don't know how to pronounce it. And Jessica is our Keys Education Program Coordinator. And then we have Zachary Craig, who is our staff biologist down there in the Keys. So they're going to be telling us a lot about the research and tying that into the classroom. Miss Caitlin is going to be moderating chat. I will be here, of course, popping in and out. But if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat, and then we'll take a break and kind of answer all those questions. And then at the end, we'll have some time just for open dialogue, and we can unmute and chat and all that. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. And Miss Jessica, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to virtually meet you all. As Miss Dana said, I'm Jessica. I am the education coordinator down here in the Keys. I got my start down here. We were just chatting about it in 2015. I started as an intern, and I stayed in the Keys for a few years after that, and I was a science teacher. I ran a STEM lab at an elementary school here in Key West, and a little over a year ago now, got hired on as the education coordinator. So since then, we've been developing tons and tons of programs. We have on-site residential programs for visiting students. We get a lot of colleges and high school students. We do classroom programs for local schools, and even adult programs, citizen science programs for people who want to get really up and close with coral restoration. We teach them about our methods and actually take them out to our nurseries to participate in restoration. So large variety of programs that we do down here. And the whole point of it, the mission being that we want to share with our community and visitors what exactly is going on in our lab, because we have a pretty big problem down here, and that is our coral reefs are dying, and we want to make sure that they survive, and not only through restoration and research, but also education. So I'm going to take you guys on a really quick virtual tour. Have any of you been to the Keys and seen the lab at all? Okay, cool. A couple people. Awesome. So depending on when you've been here, you might have seen the old field station versus what is here now, which are two very different things. So I'm going to share my screen with you and just take you through a little video we have and kind of talk you through some of the programs and all of these exciting changes that we've been going through in the past couple of years. So and I think we mentioned it already, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We've got Zach here, our resident expert and staff biologist, to answer some questions after the tour if anything comes up. So can I get a thumbs up? Everyone can see my screen. Awesome, cool. All right, so what you're seeing here is our old field station. So when Mote got its start in the Florida Keys, it was actually on Pigeon Key, which if you've ever been over the 7 Mile Bridge, Pigeon Key is out there. And we moved here in shortly after 98 when a hurricane made it pretty difficult to get out to Pigeon Key. What you're seeing over here are our dorm and office facilities, and then on the right over here was our research labs. And these smaller black shade cloths were actually the beginning of our restoration nursery. But we quickly outgrew those facilities and built the Elizabeth Moore International Center for Coral Reef Research and Restoration. So this is our current building now. It was completed in May 2017 and includes 19,000 square feet of research, education, classrooms, offices, dormitories, and it required $7 million to build. So as I said, we have 7 dorm rooms, 6 offices, 2 wet labs, 3 dry labs. We have 2 indoor classrooms for programs and also 1 fairly new outdoor classroom that we're super excited to use once we can have kids here again. So this building is rated to withstand a Category 5 hurricane, which obviously is something that's super important to us down here. We're doing a lot of work and it takes a lot of money to do the work that our scientists are doing. So we need to make sure that we're protected in case of a hurricane. So this building is also LEED Gold certified, which is awarded to buildings that have impact on the well-being of people and also the environment. It's the first of its kind in the Keys. It's considered a green building. So it has several features that minimize our environmental footprint. And one of those features being the solar panels that you can see here on the roof. Nearly 18% of all of our energy used here comes from these solar panels. And we also have 1,050-gallon cisterns where we collect rainwater, and that some of that is used in our restrooms. And we don't have too bad of a view either. So what you're seeing here is our outdoor nursery space. To the left, that's where the outdoor classroom is. And to the right, we're panning over our restoration land-based nursery. So we outplant 2 types of corals here. We outplant branching corals, which you can see here, and also massive corals, which are, boulder corals. They look more kind of like these big rocks, and they're very slow growing. So they do a lot better. We're able to maintain them and grow them a lot better in our land-based nursery. Each of these blue trough tanks you're seeing are we call raceways, and they can hold up to 1,000 microfragments each. And these shade cloths you see, these coverings, are for giving variable sun treatment throughout the day. It also helps us to control the temperature and then the algae growth within the tanks. And you can see we have quite a few of them, much bigger than what it used to be. And so these raceways hold these racks that you see here, and on top of these racks are coral plugs. So we have ceramic circles, essentially, that we grow our corals on until they're to a size about $1/2, which is a lot of what you're seeing here. And at that point, they could be outplanted. And here at the lab, we use a technique called microfragmentation and reskinning. So this is the video we're seeing. This is one of our restoration biologists, Alicia Manfroy, and she's using a diamond-banded saw to cut the coral plugs into smaller pieces. And the reason that we do this is because scientists have found that cutting coral into smaller pieces actually increases its growth rate by 25 to 40 times faster than what it would normally grow. Similar to kind of our skin, when our skin is cut, our cells grow a lot quicker to heal our wound, and coral tissue is essentially doing the same thing. So you could see she was cutting them into strips, and then we cut them into these 1 square centimeter pieces, and then reattach them onto new plugs using just a marine super glue. And from here, these plugs will stay in our nursery and be monitored and maintained until they're back to that full plug size where they could then be outplanted. So what we're seeing here is a part of our outplanting process. Scientists go out and they find a habitat that is suitable for these plugs. They'll remove any algae and actually drill holes, because each of these plugs has a stem that they can then glue into an old coral head or dead rock or limestone to allow these corals to keep growing out into the water. And so this is an example of what that might look like. And so we outplant them in this way because as they continue to grow out, they'll meet and touch and fuse together. And we're very careful to make sure that we are planting corals with the same DNA or the same genotype together so that they'll fuse. If they are different genotypes, they'll actually fight each other off. So we're going to go out to one of our research areas. This is our CHAOS system, which stands for Climate and Acidification Ocean Simulator. So this area focuses on how restoration corals will be affected by end of the century predictions of pH and temperature levels. This information helps us informs future decisions of which genotypes we use in restoration. And this program began indoors in just one raceway in that old building, and it's now expanded to what you're seeing here, which includes 12 shallow raceways, 6 deep raceways, and 6 header tanks. So we can control the pH in each of the header tanks, which we'll see in just a minute. They're these big gray tanks, and from there we can send, here we are, these big gray tanks are where we have water and we can control the pH and then send them to experimental tanks and test our restoration corals to see which corals are going to be able to handle low pH conditions and warmer water temperatures. So the CHAOS system also includes a degassing tank, boiler, and chiller to help with temperature control. And each individual raceway has a dual heat exchanger and network controls. So this is one of the storage areas on the first floor of our building. So in addition to land-based nursery and restoration research that we have going on site, we also have a offshore nursery. And so this is where we're growing corals in the water. And these are mainly, we're focusing on branching corals, which you can see in this picture. And restoration really got its start working with these branching corals in offshore nurseries. And we've had really great success with that. So you can see from here, these are our original outplants in May of 2013. And you can see by December and April, they've really kind of grown. Sorry, I'm gonna just come back to that. These big thickets and starting to create an environment again where fish are gonna come back and other marine animals. And we have more than a 95% survival after a year, which is a huge, huge success. So this is on the second floor. It's one of our wet labs. And so where we were seeing Alicia microfragging earlier, we can see newly cut fragments here in the raceway, and we have UV lights above so we can control the light in here. So in our second wet lab is where we do a lot of our reproduction work. We actually just had spawning recently in August. So spawning happens once a year around the full moon in August, and it all happens within about a week period. We'll have all of our colonies that we have on land spawn, and we'll also have our colonies offshore in our spawning nursery. And we'll also monitor outplants that we've put out that are big enough. And so with corals, size matters more than age. When they become a dinner plate size, that's when they're ready to reproduce. So if we know that we have outplants or a site that has outplants that are big enough for that, we'll go and monitor those on boats. And then we'll also have our colonies that we've brought in, and we'll put them in buckets like this. and will actually watch and wait. And so they'll release bundles, which have sperm and egg. And you can kind of see it here, and you'll see it in the next picture. Scientists will actually collect each of those bundles. And then the sperm and egg will break up, and they can create crosses. And when we have information like we know which colonies are resistant to warm temperatures or disease, or can better tolerate low pH conditions, we can then make crosses for those corals. And so you can see here they're collecting those bundles. And so moving upstairs, this is one of our dry labs. So everything we saw outside with the chaos system, this is where a lot of the water quality and monitoring is happening. So scientists in this lab study changes in ocean chemistry and how those changes affect coral reef ecosystems. So they collect lots and lots of seawater samples from our experimental tanks, and they will look at certain aspects of the chemistry within those tanks to really paint a picture of the current environmental conditions of our oceans. And if you've ever seen the Protect Our Reefs license plates, a lot of our research is funded by that. And so this is our last dry lab in the facility. This is the microbiology lab. Here is where we can process and prepare samples for genomic analyses. We do microbial studies. And this is the only place in the lab where we'll actually focus on coral disease research. And a big part of that is that we're not wanting to expose our restoration corals to disease. So a lot of these disease studies actually happen up in Sarasota. But we do have a lot of facilities for visiting scientists to use. We use this space when we have students that stay on site that want to do microbial studies. So we've done water sampling and plating these samples to look at Vibrio disease, and so really useful space. Got lots of great tools. Kids get experience with the pipettes and working under the hood and all sorts of things. So that's pretty much the end of our tour. Pretty brief, but we got a really good overview of all of the different programs that we have here. And we're going to take a few minutes to talk with our scientist, Zach, and then I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about some of the education programs and virtual opportunities that we have as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And did anybody have any questions for me or for Zach? I don't think we have anything in the chat. So Zach, do you mind just kind of telling us who you are and what you do here and all that fun stuff?
Sure, of course, thanks. So as you guys know, my name is Zachary Craig. I'm staff biologist for the land-based coral restoration program down here in Summerlin Key. I started as an intern in 2016. I got hired on as a staff member early 2018. And now I started as just a technician, and now I'm a staff biologist working with Sarah Hamlin, another one of my coworkers who's another staff biologist, to essentially run the whole land-based program down here. My main job is to make sure that all the corals on site remain healthy and that we stay on task and can meet our numbers for how many corals that we want to produce in a year and outplant, as well as hiring on interns and volunteers to help us maintain all the corals in the tanks, and as well as take part in the field work for outplanting. So I help oversee it all, and I enjoy working in every aspect of it. I don't get to do enough of it sometimes because I'm running around. But so I started as an intern, just working through the tanks, and I learned to microfrag through some previous staff members here, and now I get the opportunity to teach others, interns and volunteers. Sometimes we even have in the past I've had school groups come through that I'll teach them to microfrag. I guess my favorite parts of my job is microfragging and outplanting. So taking the corals, cutting them into small pieces, but we have to watch them very carefully for the first week after that, just to make sure that they are doing well and we don't have any tissue recession. Actually, today I just got back about an hour and a half ago from outplanting. We went out, land team and field team both went out to outplant corals this morning. I believe we put 260 elkhorn corals out, and the field team put out 500 staghorn corals. So it's very enjoyable work to do. But yeah, I guess that's briefly what I do. There's a lot of complexities to it, but the real overview is just maintaining between 25 to 40,000 coral fragments on site at one time, and making sure that I'm educating all of my interns and volunteers to the best of my ability, is, you know, trying to give them all the info that I got as an intern and more if possible, because for the most part I can't get, me and the rest of the staff members, we can't get our eyes in the tanks every day. So we really need to educate everyone that comes here to work with us what to look out for. You know, if we see any sort of stress in the corals, we see any sort of tissue recession, discoloration, you know, we'll have them grab our attention and we'll try and educate them on what we believe is going on. Corals are a little bit finicky and a little bit difficult to work with sometimes because they can't tell you what's wrong. So we have to take water quality measurements to check the pH and the temperature. We have to check to see if we had any freshwater intrusion, if it rained a lot or if it was like raining sideways. We got to check to see if there's any microbial problems. So sometimes we get microbes that cause issues in our tanks. So we're taking stuff up under the microscopes up here in the lab. I do have some coral skeleton stuff to show you. I guess it was in the video, but I got like one of these little ceramic plugs, and we actually grow all of our corals on ceramic plugs. We do have some on these field cement plugs, but this is an example of a staghorn skeleton. This was on a field plug that came in from the nursery, out in the field nursery. I believe they had some storm blow through that. A couple of them died off, but we do have replicates of genotypes in the nursery. So if we do lose a coral, it's not the end of that coral. We're able to, you know, regrow, you know, break a branch off from another one and regrow it. But yeah, I think that's about it for my job description.
Yeah, I call on Zach a lot to help with education groups, which he does very, very willingly. But we do a program on the land-based nursery with our on-site groups. One part of that is getting to learn how to microfrag. And so they actually will work with the saw, and we have just kind of models of coral that they get experience to know what it's like to microfrag. And a lot of them are usually kind of surprised by it. They're like afraid to touch the saw. And we also have, we've worked together to develop raceway surveys. And so all of those kind of issues that Zach was talking about that the interns have to look out for, and that the staff have to look out for, we've created a survey for then students to come and identify those issues and look at a raceway and to see if they can kind of determine what's going on. So it's really cool, and a lot of the students that come here are getting a valuable experience and what it's actually like to do restoration work. So it's awesome that, you know, we can provide them that on site. Cool. Well, thank you, Zach. Does anyone have any questions for him before we let him go? He's had a long day out in the field. Cool. Well, thanks again, Zach, for joining us.
Of course. Take care.
Cool. Well, I just want to take a few extra minutes because I'm sure you guys are probably mostly interested in what kind of education opportunities you might be able to get your hands on. So Like I said before, we do a lot of classroom programs locally. Obviously, that's been a little bit suspended and different this year. And so one of the things that we've been working on developing is teacher kits. And I think there's definitely different versions of it out there, but essentially, teachers locally that sign up get a kit of materials for their classroom that then walks them through an activity that highlights some portion of our research or restoration. And so with also these materials, these hands-on materials, they also get a classroom code. And so we just use Google Classroom and they get a whole list of virtual materials that go along with that. And so for those of you who aren't in the Keys, while you might not be able to get the materials box, these virtual materials are available to anybody, and it really has a whole, I'll just show you, but it goes along nicely with, it has standards aligned and vocabulary and assessing knowledge, behind the scenes videos of the lab, and full activity guides and lesson plans for you. And a lot of the materials are things that you probably already have in your classrooms or could easily get. And some of the things that maybe might be a little more special or specific, very easily could use alternatives and just kind of things that are already readily available to you. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, is any part open to the public? We don't have anything open to the public currently, unfortunately. We're looking forward to the day that that changes.
Thank you, Jess. I was just about to unmute. So yeah, the facility down in the Keys is not currently open to the public. But as Jess is mentioning, if you are located in the Keys, there are opportunities for you to hopefully eventually be involved down there. So it's not open to the public like our aquarium is up here in Sarasota.
So can you guys see my screen? Awesome. So this is an example of one of our kits. So this is the Reef Restoration Kit. We've developed it for more elementary level, but I think it can be probably scaled up if you needed it to be. So when you get the class code, obviously you start here at the stream and go to classwork. There's a guide of how to use the classroom, a survey for afterwards, and we have a full PDF lesson plan for you to follow. So here we have our objectives, our standards that are aligned, an introduction to basically everything you would need to know to teach this on your own. And then we have the lesson plan. So just kind of the steps. It walks you through exactly the resources. Each of these links will take you to the resource in the classroom if you don't feel like even clicking out of this. We have a review, some extensions, references, and some additional resources. And again, all of these things are in the classroom as well. So we have an assessing prior knowledge assessment, which is great if you want to use it. This is really kind of up to you and what works for your classroom. But the resource is there, and it's just a quick 5-question quiz. And then we have all of the background information. So we have vocabulary cards, and we have those translated in Spanish as well if you have students with accommodations. We have the video lesson for our growing coral underwater. And we have behind the scenes video of scientists actually doing restoration. And then we have our activity. So this is our coral outplanting activity, and it's got picture instructions and exactly everything you would need to walk students how to make their own outplants and kind of walk through our outplanting procedures offshore. And then it ends with the same quiz, and we have Q&A with scientist videos. So that's our lower level kit. But we also have so we have 4 lessons. We have reef restoration, we have coral anatomy, and both of those are elementary. We have our OA kit, which is intended for middle school, but I think it could also be used for high school. And we also have a coral health kit, which is our high school kit, which goes through a little more of reading a research paper, being able to analyze figures, a little bit more upper level critical thinking skills. And so this is our OA kit. It's the same setup. It's got the lesson plan, assessing prior knowledge, and this one's also translated into Spanish. Background information, so pH scale, vocabulary cards, the OA video lesson, and I also included the introduction to corals in case your kids have no idea what a coral is, which may be not so common in Florida, but other schools for sure. And then the same thing, we have an activity guide, and this walks students through an experiment using Tums and liquids with different pHs. And Tums are actually made of the same exact chemical compound as coral skeleton, so calcium carbonate. So it translates really well and gives them a really awesome visual of what's going on when corals are put in low pH conditions. And then we have our extensions, behind the scenes videos. We have, I don't know if any of you use Kahoot. I used it a lot when I was a teacher. It's a fun quiz where the kids kind of race against each other to answer the question. So there's a paper format of the quiz as well as a virtual version of it. And for those of you who are in high school, this might be a little bit more, or if you have students that are a little bit more advanced, we also have a changing chemistry assignment as well in our extensions. So let me stop sharing. So that's just kind of an overview of what our teacher kits look like. And like I said, that's something that I'd be happy to, once these are ready to go, which they should be here in the next couple weeks, send out codes. And I think even if you weren't to do some of the hands-ons, the other virtual materials would be really easy. I'm not sure if you guys are even in classrooms yet, but all of those other things could very easily be sent to your students to access. So are there any questions about the teacher kits?
Jessica, what is included in the actual kit that they would get?
Yeah, so the kit materials that they would need to do the activity, and all of that is listed in the activity guide. So
like a whole classroom set, like 30 sponges and enough
right.
for a certain number of children?
Right. So teachers would then need to submit a form to me and let me know, because some teachers that maybe have multiple classes, could tell me, I have 120 students, but yeah, so it just depends on what the class size is. But yeah, they would get the class set of however many students they have, and it would be sponges and pipe cleaners and straws and Tums and things like that, whatever they would need to complete that activity.
Is there a fee?
No fee. This is funded by our Protect Our Reefs license plate. So yeah, it's a POR grant, and it's free to our local schools.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Do you guys, if I could ask you a question, for those of you who aren't local here, I think everyone's kind of from maybe all over Florida or maybe the St. Pete area, is this the virtual materials, do you think that's something that you could utilize if you are not in classrooms yet?
Virtual is about all we're going to probably be able to utilize for the entire year, we are assuming.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
So even though the kids are going back into class from the perspective of a facility that offers education, we won't be able to go to them and they won't be able to come to us.
Right.
So, yeah, so we would have to do anything that we did virtually.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of the idea behind these teacher kits, because if teachers want to have a connection with us, we can certainly set something like that up, where it would be something like this, like a Zoom call with the class. But we wanted to be able to create a kit where teachers could kind of, you know, take it on themselves and be able to still do these activities.
Hi, if I could jump in. My name's Stephanie. I'm sorry I was off video because I'm currently sitting in my garage. My house is under reno, and I'm a teacher in a suburb of Chicago, Illinois. And I found you, I follow you guys all on Instagram or Facebook or whatever one it is. But I teach marine science outside of Chicago, Illinois. So my resources are slim pickings. And so I thought this would be great. So to answer your question, I think the online stuff I would absolutely use. I would love, even if I'm not with my high school seniors, you know, even though I think they'd love building the frags the micro frags out of clay, I would certainly use your online resources. Like the fact if you had some, you know, Ask a Scientist or some, you know, walking through your lab or whatever, they would really, really enjoy that. So thank you. And I would love to know how to access it when it's available. Because many of us inland don't have the wonderful resources you have at the coast. So thank you for allowing me to listen with you today.
Yeah, of course. And one of the things that we developed kind of as things were shutting down, and this is available to anybody. Sorry, I'm going to go back on share really quickly. Is just our general keys classroom. And so this doesn't necessarily have those kind of packages that put everything nicely together, but it does have a nice kind of layout of upper level students activities. And these were designed for people to be able to do at home while they were home looking for things to do. So we have some different activities for upper level students. We have activities for kids and families. All of our behind the scenes videos are on here. We did a coding challenge. So we have a bunch of different coding challenges using Scratch, if anybody's familiar with that platform. We have all of our video lessons and our Q&As with scientists. So this is just a mecca of resources. They're not necessarily like our teacher kits where they have an activity and, you know, kind of the lessons and the extensions and the quizzes and things like that. But this is an absolute like great area just to kind of get anything and everything you would want from Mote and the Florida Keys. And so we can share that code with you guys as well. And I'm gonna put, so this is our website for us, specifically education here in the Keys, and you can find all of this information. Once the teacher kits are up and ready to go, you'll find those on our website. And you can find the Google Classroom, the virtual classroom code there as well.
Jess, I think you just sent the email.
Yeah. Oh,
Everyone can reach out to you.
sorry. It's a / not an @
Okay.
Let me grab it real quick.
And we have another question for you, Jess, when you're ready.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just.
And we'll also include, we'll send a follow-up email with this information as well with everyone, that will have the codes to the classrooms as well as the website and Jess's contact information. So Jess, we have a question. She works at a high school where they had an aquaculture lab and wanted to do similar things like this. What are the chances that the high school and Mote would work together? Would you guys be able to do that and grow some coral there?
So we've had questions like this in the past, and there are a couple like red tape issues. But if it were simply that we would donate we have donated coral to people in the past, other organizations for education purposes, where then the students could then take on growing those coral. That is definitely possible. As far as then outplanting those back onto the reef, that's really, really difficult because of the sanctuary and NOAA rules. Just it's hard to control, was disease introduced or anything like that. But for education purposes, we do sometimes do things like that. And I guess it would also depend on where you're at, because shipping corals is not easy. So hopefully that link works. Sorry, that was, if you have any other questions, that is also my email, keyseducation@mote.org.
So if she wants to ask a little bit more specifically about her school, she can just email you then.
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect.
See how long we can awkwardly look at each other. Anyone? All right. Well, I think of no. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just because I have another meeting I have to attend for school, but thanks again for setting up such things to allow people from across the country to jump in. It was just, I'm re-inspired just listening to you all for a very short time today. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Tiffany, thank you. Thanks for your support. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, friends, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. Caitlin, thanks for moderating. Jessica, thank you so much. That was awesome. Like, I am obsessed with the new outdoor classroom and cannot wait to get down there.
Yes.
And also use all your coral stuff for my students this year. So
Absolutely.
It was awesome. Yes, it was awesome. So thank you so very much. Very educational, very informative. And I can't wait to see if I can talk my way into going down to the Keys again sometimes.
And next month, we will be visiting Loggerhead Marine Life Center with Miss Hannah Campbell. So stay tuned for details about that. So hope to see you guys then.
Okay. Hey, have a great day and talk with you guys, okay? Be safe and well.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks for joining.